So when it comes to any business or any side hustle at all, there's really nothing that should speak louder to you than the numbers themselves. And in today's video, what I want to do is dive deeply into several specific short-term rentals to find out what the earnings potential is for various property types in today's market. And we're going to cover the income, the expenses, and of course, all the other factors that impact that bottom line. Whether you're a seasoned real estate investor or you're just starting out, this video is to help you determine and give you a better understanding of the financial aspects of a short-term rental property. So make sure you grab a pen and paper and let's go ahead and get started right away.
So the first example we'll walk through is actually a property that is literally within walking distance of our personal residence, because one of the things we always like to instill in terms of a mindset with our students that come into our training is that opportunities in this industry are literally everywhere. Like they could literally be across the street from where you are at right now. Okay. So we wanted to challenge ourselves a little bit, but it just so happened once we did a little bit more digging into this particular property we're going to get into, it ended up being a home run for us. So what we're going to do is I'm going to show you a full year's worth of financials from January to December 2022 and kind of take you behind the curtain and show you exactly how this particular property performed and some of the different dynamics that are in play. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pop my screen up here. So this is a single family home. It is a three bed, 2.5 bath. Like I said, literally, I could walk to this property from where I live in about 5 minutes, okay? But one of the things we always like to encourage our students on is you don't just want any property. You want to try to find something that's unique or has some kind of characteristic about it that's not easily replicatable or easy to copy necessarily. So one thing that jumped out at us on this particular home, and you can potentially see it in the picture here, this home actually backed onto a pretty nice water feature and nice walking trails. So there's not a lot of stuff in this area that has that kind of characteristics. So it ended up making the property stand out a lot more compared to some of the comparable properties in the area. Okay, but diving into the actual financials. So this is an actual statement from January to December 2022. Now, obviously, just for confidentiality for the client that we managed this property for, we took the address out, just to be totally transparent there. But this is essentially how the year turned out on this particular property. Okay, so as we talk about on VIP, we are not just on Airbnb. We actually are diversified across a number of different booking channels because, again, you don't just want to have all your eggs in one basket for a market. You also don't want to have all your eggs in one basket on a particular platform either, because what happens if one day Airbnb decides they don't like you anymore and then all of a sudden your hosting account is shut down? We're fortunate that hasn't happened, but we had a student that actually they woke up one day and they were locked out of their account for about 48 hours and scared the actual shit out of them. So yeah. So anyways, not to digress, this property last year generated over $73,000 in top line revenue for us, okay? Now, a lot of people in the space, the conversation would stop right there, okay? And they would just say, we made 73 grand and then look at how cool, right?
Right.
What we show people how to do is we want to look at this as through an actual business, right? Because everyone loves to do the addition. No one shows you the subtraction, okay? Now, this deal was actually really interesting, Michael, and I'll explain why. At the start of the year, this was actually a rental arbitrage property for our company, okay? We were paying rent to the landlord and anything we made over and above that or utilities and fixed costs, that was ours to keep, okay? But what ended up happening was this deal actually converted into a partnership a little bit later in the year. What happened was the homeowner came to us. They were in a little bit of a pickle. They were going through some personal stuff. They were going through a divorce. Their spouse was being unreasonable. She needed to get a different mortgage on here to get her costs down. Without getting into all the nuts and bolts of it, she said, well, I know you guys manage, and I need to be making more on this property than what I'm getting currently in rent. And I said, I'm sorry, I can't do that because I have an investor in this property, and part of the earnings from this, I'm actually paying back because they actually fronted the cost of furnishing. So I have to take that into account. So long story short, what ended up happening, I came back to the homeowner. I said, listen, the only way I can make this work is I will sell you the furnishings on this property so that you own them. Because that's how it typically works when people want to have their properties managed for us. They would pay for the furnishings. So she ended up cutting us a check for, because as you can see, the property is high end, it was furnished very nicely. She ended up cutting us a check for $35,000, bought the furnishings from us. We then took that money and then went and got another unit that is also like 2 minutes away from my house, so that my original deal that I had with my investor remained intact. And think about this, it was a win-win-win scenario. So the homeowner won, because as soon as we converted this to a partnership where she actually got more upside, she was actually getting more money than she was anticipating to get, which she was super happy about because she needed to be making it. My investor was happy because the deal we had with him continued on, just simply at a different address. And obviously we were happy because, well, we got a check for $35,000 and we were able to make all of this work, right? So let's just kind of dive into this a little bit further. Okay, so yeah, we had $73,000, and change in top line revenue. Now let's go through some of the subtractions. Okay, so obviously if we're going to be advertising on these major OTA platforms, there's costs. Okay, so we have the service fees from Airbnb. They take 3% of the booking value. So if you make $100, they take $3. So you get, as a host, $97 out the back end. Okay, we're on booking.com as well. For anyone that is potentially looking into it, tread lightly. It's a very tricky platform, but you can make a pretty great deal of money from it. They charge 15%. So it's a little bit different. We go into a lot of detail in our training on how to account for the differences in commissions the sites charge. But again, let's just go through it line by line here. We have a very lovely cleaning team that comes through after every single guest. So obviously got to pay them. Okay. We have a few different softwares we use to manage and create a lot of automation capabilities. So automating guest messages, automating reviews, automating scheduling of cleaning staff, anything that can provide increased efficiency to just ease the burden of day-to-day management. We try to install that and make it a lot simpler. Now, as you can see here, the rent or lease, that's where this is actually accounted for right here. So that $2,000 a month we were paying, there was 1 month, I think, where something had to happen on the property. We just deducted it from the homeowner's rent for, just a maintenance bill that was outside the scope of what we would be responsible for. But you can see that exactly right here in this line item. Okay. Stripe merchant fees. Okay. So we have direct booking revenues. So when we're taking direct payments, we have to pay fees as a company in order to have the merchant services. Okay. Got to pay people to come and shovel snow and mow the grass anytime. So that's accounted for right there. That's actually within our partnership model. We actually have that on the homeowner. So this was actually only billed just for a few months before we ended up converting it into the new partnership model. You're going to have some of the odd time where things need to get fixed up on the property. Okay, so that's all accounted for right here. Supplies, toilet paper, paper towel, Kleenex, shampoo, conditioner. Things get consumed in the property. Final thing is VRBO booking fees. It's just the commissions that you pay to the online OTAs. Okay, so that gives us a gross profit of just shy of 51 grand, give or take. Okay, now getting a little bit further into this, we'll just rip through this a little bit quicker. Garbage disposal. We actually have a company that comes and picks up garbage for us every single week. Internet. This is now actually paid for by the homeowner, but we covered it for the first few months of the year. Had to pay a business license. You can see that expense right here. And then of course, utilities, but now that's also covered from the homeowner as well, because we converted it from rental arbitrage into a partnership. Right. Management fees. So all the money that we were paying to the homeowner, that is blended up into that total there from the partnership splits. Resolution adjustment. Well, sometimes guests get mad and you have to give them money. Okay. So sometimes that happens, but long story short, off of $73,000, we ended up taking, in terms of profit generated for our business, just shy of 24 grand. Okay, so when you do the math on that, margin of 32%.
Guys, if you're watching, you've been on the fence, or you're seeing this for the first time, you want more information, or you already know based on what you've seen that you're interested in moving forward with the BNB Bootcamp, go ahead and email bnbbootcamp@vipfinancialeducation.com. Be sure to include your first, your last name, the best number to reach you in the body of the email, and BNB Bootcamp conversation in the subject line, and someone from Michael and Katrina's team will get back in touch with you ASAP. Let's dive into another one if you don't mind.
Sure. So one of the questions we get all the time is is it okay, or should I maybe consider looking at managing a property that's remote? That's not, for someone that's brand new, we typically recommend they start in their own backyard just to get some experience under their belt. But depending on where a student may be located, that may not always be possible or may not always be the best idea, just depending on what local regulations, what have you look like, okay? Now, we are managing or starting to manage a property for actually a client of ours in Calgary, okay? So we call this the Daffodil House. It's a very unique property. It's a 1910 vintage, so it's got a lot of historical characteristics to it. We really speak to this in the listing in terms of the history, the uniqueness, how it really stands out, and some of the different factors in the neighborhood, all these different things. But you'll probably notice, the reviews we've had have not been that fantastic. Okay, now we're going to get into the financial statement in a moment here, and this is always someone's deepest fear. If they're managing a property from far away, what is the worst possible case scenario that can happen? So let's talk about it, because we had a very interesting year so far in this property. Now, diving into the financial, we have actually been managing this property from about July last year until present day today. But one of the biggest challenges we had, so I want to paint a picture for you, Michael. So within Calgary, every year there's something called the Calgary Stampede. Have you heard of Stampede before?
Well, there was I think a pro football team years ago, the Calgary Stampeders, right?
Okay.
That's all I know.
Yeah, okay. The Calgary Stampede it's a big deal. It's a big deal in Alberta. Like, basically the whole city shuts down for almost like 2 weeks, and people just get all kinds of, people go crazy over it, right? So we had this booking where, now overall for like 6 months, we did, 38 grand on it. Not too bad. But what really missed the mark on this particular property, we had a booking come in for around a 2.5 month period over the peak season of the year for $40,000 just off one booking for 2.5 months. Okay.
Wow.
We were ecstatic. We were spiking the football. We're like, man, this is so great. This is amazing. What ended up happening within 1 week of us having that guest checking the property, because I mentioned earlier, this is a 1910 vintage home, a pipe burst in an interior wall of the property, completely flooded the basement, and we had to give almost all of that money back.
Wow. Okay, that is the worst case scenario. Yep.
So what do we do? Well, I mean, what do you do when you have a problem? You just start tackling it, right? So what ended up happening, we ended up getting a remediation company in there. Now, because this is a partnership deal, our business did not experience the costs of having to actually restore and bring the property back to its former condition. But from an opportunity cost standpoint, we lost on a huge amount of revenue, absolutely
Sure.
huge amount of revenue. I mean, $40,000, like those kinds of bookings don't come around all the time.
Right.
So anyways, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
Did you guys get the property back after it got restored?
Yeah, so it was down for about a month, give or take. It was a real mess, but we ended up getting operations kicking over and turning again. And overall, this has still been a relatively decent unit for us. So getting into kind of the nuts and bolts, this deal is a partnership. So it wasn't kind of like the last example where it was a quasi hybrid of rental arbitrage turning into. This is 100% a partnership deal. So we do not have a lease. We had no deposit. And for all the furnishings that you see in this property, we did not pay for them. Okay. That was actually covered by the homeowner in this particular case. And it's actually a good friend of ours. So anyways, getting into the details. So this property over a 6 month period still did, a respectable, just shy of around $39,000. So not too bad. So getting into some of the different costs, again, it's going to look very similar to the last example. Service fees, you've got to pay our maids, property management service. Left us with around $30,000 gross profit. Okay. Management fees, that's the actual disbursements that go to my client. We had to refund a guest another time. Long story short, to the business, we made around $8,100 on this in 6 months, 21% profit margin on just shy of 39 grand. So the numbers obviously would have been a lot better if we had kept that $40,000 booking, but overall, it's still very early in the life of the management of this property. So looking to 2023, are we going to do anything different? No, we're going to continue to manage it, see what happens, weigh the headache to income ratio and go from there. So
one of the things that is really important, when you're identifying specific markets to target is who is your demographic. The best thing to do with short-term rentals, in my opinion, obviously, is just to capture people that are already going to a specific destination as opposed to trying to draw people there. So do you have any examples of that up there in your markets, any that you're involved in, that you specifically went after because they are that vacation destination or because they are, conference driven for, business conferences and the like?
Absolutely, yeah. So I have it on my screen here right now. So we're going to walk through that example just next.
Great.
So one of the transitions we had over the last, I would say, year and a half in our business, because we started off on controlling but not owning properties. Now, a goal we've had for a long time was we wanted to start acquiring real estate. And this is just more from a long-term wealth building perspective, but also from a lifestyle perspective, because the properties we started buying were located in a market called Canmore, Alberta. Okay, you can see that here in the listing. And what's unique about this, it's a very small little town. There's only like 10,000 people that live there. But if you've been to Canada, you'll understand really quickly what is so unique about this area. It is, so this is within the Bow Valley inside of Alberta. The scenery there it's irreplaceable. You cannot, it's actually kind of hard to describe how stunningly beautiful it is there. But what was unique about this was the reason why we bought here was a few different reasons. One, from a lifestyle perspective, we actually went to the mountains several times a year. So we're like, well, heck, we'd love to own a property in an area that we frequent so that, if we need a place to stay, we can obviously, use it up for our own purposes. But as we peeled back the layers of the onion more and more, we just found some of the just very appealing characteristics as to why this was going to be a good investment for us. So one, very short-term rental friendly market. This market is driven entirely almost by tourism. It is the lifeblood of what keeps this town tick. So in terms of the regulations there, it is strictly enforced, but they actually had short-term rental specific zoning for it. Okay, so because there's specific zoning and specific corridors of the city, there's almost zero chance they're ever going to change that because they know just how important it is to have that tourism dollar flooding through their economy. Okay. The other thing that we noticed was Canmore's, it's not a new story. It's been around for a long time, but a lot of operators that were competing against this market, what's interesting is that it almost has as many listings as Edmonton does, even though it's like 1% of the size in terms of population. So it's a very competitive market. So because it's competitive, we wanted to find different things that we could do in order to stand out, in order to really compete at a big level. Okay. So part of our analysis was we knew regulations, it was top shelf. There's constant demand on this market because people flood through this town all the time. And we knew it was going to be a safe long-term bet, but how are we going to differentiate ourselves? Well, as we were going through the research process, what we discovered was, again, most of the competition in this market was, again, in the 1 and 2 bedroom space, because actually buying a property here is actually really hard to do, Michael. The banks, you had to come up with a 35% down payment. So you got to have a lot of chips in order to even just get into this market to begin with. Okay. Now, when we acquired this unit, so this was over a year ago now. Okay. So we've had a full 12 months on it. So let's dive into the financial statement. Now, the numbers on this are actually going to look pretty appealing for the audience. Okay. So this was our last 12 rolling months on this particular property. Okay. So in terms of income, again, compared to, some of the best properties in Edmonton cannot even hold a candle to some of the numbers that we get in this market. So this is just a simple 2-bed, 2-bath townhouse. But what we did in order to differentiate it, we actually increased the sleeping capacity by having a bunk bed, by having a sofa bed. So we can actually sleep 10 people under this roof. And what's good about that is, if ski groups are coming in, and larger, if there's more than one family, we can have them all under one roof and they can split the cost. Okay. Anyways, without digressing, this property did just shy of $134,000 in revenue for us last year. So break that down, that's roughly 11-ish grand a month, give or take. So not too shabby, right? Again, a lot of the numbers you're going to see here are almost very identical to what you're going to see on some of the past examples. Okay. Now, just diving a little bit further into this, This property actually generated, bottom line after all expenses were paid, just shy of 70 grand to the bottom. So over 52% profit margin for us. So this is a very, very good unit for us in our portfolio. And in fact, if you look a little bit deeper here, our accountant, because we had our year end, this is, without getting into all the details, he charged depreciation on this. So that when you actually back that out, because depreciation is a non-cash expense, the profit margin on this property was actually 62% after all bills were paid. So pretty attractive.
That's a smoker.
This has been a very, very good investment for us.
Yeah, fantastic. So obviously identifying great destination spots like that, you guys have identified that and you're filling out your portfolio. That was a smoking deal. I mean, $130,000 on that investment, great bottom line cash flow on that, and obviously a super healthy return. Additionally, you guys operate in places where they're business friendly or business destinations as far as conferences and the like. Those are great places to have short-term rentals as well, right?
Absolutely. And this is really important, especially for anyone that's looking to get into this industry. And this is a question we encourage all of our students to really think about and ask themselves when they're getting into this, because if you're just really thinking about how much money can you make versus the type of clients and the types of customers you want to help and serve, you're gonna get weeded out of this industry very quickly, okay? Because you really have to come from a place of service and a place of really actually wanting to help people and add value if you really want to stand out and be able to compete at a high level in this business, okay? But to give an example on this, a lot of people think that, man, do I have to be in like a sunny destination or a vacation spot or something that has a lot of tourism draw in order to make this work? The answer is no, no, and no, okay? I'm going to give you an example in our own portfolio. So circling back up into Edmonton, again, this is not a tourism market. I mean, sure, at one time, we had the biggest mall in the world. I think we've been eclipsed by that many times over by other countries, but what's interesting about the story I'm going to tell next is this will really highlight a whole other opportunity that I think a lot of people are completely missing within short-term rentals, especially within this industry, okay? So on this particular property, again, this is actually a property that I used to live in myself. This was my personal residence, but then we ended up turning it into a long-term rental. That's a whole other story. That'll be another video for another time, Michael. But we eventually turned it into a short-term rental, okay? Now, what happened on this particular property was we ended up getting a booking last year for 6 months from a work crew that was coming into town. And what was going on is they were actually building, they were part of a construction crew that was building an Amazon fulfillment center in our city, okay? But they locked this property up for 6 months. And let's dive into some of the numbers there. Now, I have numbers here from April to December. The reason why is because we used to have this property in a different business entity. We rolled it into another one. So without getting it like super complicated, we just use the numbers from when we made that transition. So just want to be 100% clear and transparent on that for any of the viewing audience, okay? So when this booking came in, this is around April, May of last year, they booked my property for 6 months for over $6,000 a month, okay? My operating costs on this property, so between my mortgage, my property taxes, my utilities, all of those other things, is right around $200 to $2,300 a month, okay? So on a net cash flow basis, I was earning around $3,000 to $3,500 a month, just like clockwork on the property. So this is more of what you would call, instead of you have long-term rentals, which is typically 12 months, and you have a lease with the tenant. Short-term is really anything under 30 days. This was more in what is now starting to become a lot more popular, which is called the mid-term rental industry, or the mid-stay industry, people call it. So anything like month-to-month or 30-plus day reservations, okay? So getting into some of the numbers here is pretty simple, because this booking came from Airbnb. That was the only booking source that we had for really all of entire calendar, because as soon as they booked it, we were just getting a transfer into our account every month for right around $6,000 a month, give or take, okay? Service fees coming off. I barely had, we had sent our cleaning team there just a couple of times because they were just really nice guests, and we wanted to give a good service to them. Now, rent or lease. Now, a lot of people might be wondering, well, wait a second, I thought you owned this property. Why is there rent or lease in there? Well, Personally, what we do is I actually rent the property from the company to generate rental income to me personally. So that creates additional write-offs for the business. And then I can use depreciation to basically wipe out all of the tax I have to pay on that income. Okay, so when you start to own property, you can get a little bit creative in terms of how you handle some of the income and expenses that come through on there. Now, what was interesting, because everyone always likes, when you first hear the initial stages of that story, you might think, wow, like that's about as close to passive income as you can possibly get. And I would agree with you, but what you'll notice, Michael, repairs and maintenance, almost $8,000. Okay. I had to redo the roof on this property this year. So now this property, it is a duplex. So I did share the cost with my neighbors, around a $15,000, $16,000 touch, but everyone loves to talk about passive income, Michael. I'm going to tell you, on that day where I had to write that check, it did not feel very passive to me in that moment.
Yeah, that's not a fun check to write, of course, but hey, that's the cost of doing business. You're not going to have to replace that roof again, obviously, anytime soon. But it is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah. So just to kind of run through the rest of this, some viewers might find this fascinating, others might be bored to tears. So we'll just get straight to the point. Okay, so obviously we had some supplies in there as well. The guest actually ended up buying a lot of their own supplies. So that's actually really another attractive dynamic of the midterm rental space, that it's actually a lot easier type of rental to run, because guests will typically get their own supplies. I think I talked to this guest twice within a 6-month period. So it took up almost none of my time. Now, a couple other things. So property insurance on this property, we got a really good deal with a local carrier here, so it's not a tremendous cost to me personally. Utilities, pretty reasonable. So after all that was taken into account, even still after a relatively large amount of CapEx that I had on this property, we still did 35% to the bottom line. And that's in addition to me taking a nice income from this as well, in terms of the lease that I charge back to myself in order to reduce some of the overhead. So again, another wonderful example, I guess you could say, of just different ways and different means of how you can make money in this industry.
Yeah, and I love you diving into the different property types, the different examples, and ultimately how you guys went through your thought process up front and identifying these properties and why, and then just lifting up the hood here and showing us the actual financials, so everyone is seeing them for themselves. It's not talk. You guys are doing these deals. So let's say someone's watched this, they've taken a look at your other videos. We'll obviously drop those playlists below. What does that next step look like, and then what does the coaching itself all encompass?
What it looks like from here is, if we see your email come in, we will personally reach out to you and we'll book a consultation call. And there's no sales pressure here. We're just going to have a very candid, open conversation to see where you're at, what your goals are, what your challenges you're running into, and then see if we can help you bridge the gap. That's it. Okay, because we'll tell you right now, this is not a good fit for everyone. Okay, because as I mentioned earlier on the call, if you're not prepared to hustle, you're not prepared to put the work in, you're not prepared to really be teachable and learn and actually develop new set of skills, short-term rentals is not a passive strategy in the beginning. Okay, you can make it more passive over time by installing different systems, having team members and processes, and having that all clearly documented. And we show people how to do that within the training. But again, if you're not willing to put the sweat equity in the beginning, this is definitely not the right fit for that kind of person. But for those that are really committed and they want to make 2023 a year to remember, to look back on when they watched this initial interview and said, that's the day that everything started to change, feel free to reach out to us at BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com. That's BNB Bootcamp at VIPfinancialeducation.com. And we will personally get in touch with you to schedule that call. Now, in terms of the structure, as you had asked, of how the training is, essentially put together, a few different components. Okay, so when someone gets invited into our program, we have training modules, so online, so you can learn the material at your own pace. It's self-directed, and that's really the nuts and bolts of the how-to information. So, for anyone that's coming into this, if they just literally commit themselves, have a little bit of time every day, watch the videos, implement it, watch the videos, implement it, you'll have a very thriving business. That's the goal anyway by the end of the program. Now, of course, anyone that's going through this, there's going to be nuances, and we've used that word a few times on this call. You're going to have questions. There's going to be challenges that come up. There's going to be things that happen that you don't expect that you maybe need another set of eyes on in order to have some support around. So in addition to the weekly training modules, we hop on a call with all of our students once a week. The program itself is 4 months. So that's 16 calls that you have with myself and Katrina, and we are personally guiding you through every step of the program, every step of the process, because our entire intention and goal is that by the time you're done, we should have ideally at least one, if not several properties up and running, generating cash flow, taking in income. And you'll know exactly the nut and bolt mechanics of what it takes to then go take that process and to simply duplicate, rinse, and repeat. And then over time, it's just a matter of how many times you have to do that until you hit your income goal, okay? But inside of that, literally anything that you can think of in order to make the process easier. So we have, setup checklists, furnishing checklists, all the different tools and softwares and technologies we personally leverage in our business, step-by-step tutorials, how to set them up. And the final component is our community, okay? We do have a private Facebook members group. And I would say, if I was to take everything else out of it, and if we only had that, that would probably be worth more than the entire value of the program. Because when you're in the environment of like-minded people that are on the same trajectory, that are on the same journey, and are wanting to have a better life, and are wanting to really do something different, just being in that peer group of people that are taking that path, there's an enormous, they talk about the mastermind principles within the book, Think and Grow Rich. It is enormously powerful, okay? So to sum all that up, online training videos, weekly accountability calls and training, and our private Facebook group. And within that, all the different tools, resources, and checklists you need in order to go and have success. We've tried to make this as simple, as easy as possible. Now, I'm not going to say it was easy. This obviously takes work. But for those that are ready to roll up their sleeves and get busy, we could potentially be a very good fit for that person.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And again, we get time and time again, we're getting just positive feedback from our folks, which is why we continue to have you here on the channel. And you and Katrina have been gracious enough for our viewers to offer a discount. So I know that you guys are, there is scarcity. So you guys are, I believe, capping this at 10 per month for your next session. You only do one session a month. If you'd like to talk about the offer that you're willing to extend to our folks, and we certainly appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah, and we have a very good relationship with you and Matt at VIP, so happy to discuss the mechanics of that. So normal retail price on this program is $15K, all right? But anyone that comes through the VIP financial education channel, we do give a discount, okay? So instead of coming in at 15, we do offer it for $99.97. We only take on 10 people a month, okay? Reason why that is because just from an overall fulfillment capacity, from a business standpoint, we can't provision the kind of care, attention, and level of support that we need if we're just taking on hordes and hordes and hordes of students, okay? If you're looking for something like that, I mean, there's tons of courses and stuff that you can find online that can give you something similar to that. But if you really want, direct contact and mentorship and have that ability to bounce ideas off of someone that's way ahead on their path and is looking back at where you're at and can tell you exactly what you need to do in order to get unstuck and to start getting traction, that's what we essentially provide within the BNB Bootcamp program.
Yeah, fantastic. And we certainly appreciate that discount, guys. And they do cap it at 10. So if you are interested in kicking the year off, so the next session would be starting for the month of February. So we're already a month in at that point into 2023. So if you want to take action, you really want to take control of your financial future starting in 2023, this may be the avenue for you. It certainly doesn't hurt to reach out and explore it. As always, do your own due diligence. We bring people on the channel that we've thoroughly vetted by design, but certainly go out there and do your own research. And obviously Michael and Katrina are an open book with their own numbers and their own portfolio, and they've proven today that they're happy to share. So thanks for joining us today. Would love to have you back on here in a few months, and would love to continue to bring your students on here. We love to get the testimonial feedback from them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So in the meantime, guys, thanks for joining us here on the video today. If you want more content on the short-term rental space, and in particular BNB Bootcamp, go ahead and smash that thumbs up button below. We love new subscribers, so go ahead and subscribe and ding that bell notification if you want to see more videos from us here on the VIP Financial Education YouTube channel, where we help you go further, faster financially. Until next time, take care. Make it a great day.